Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, aka Miss Irene for my young peeps. I am the Bible study teacher, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking, the 21st Century Bible Study. Join me each week at the table with my co-hosts, Gen X's, Gen Y's, and yes, even some Gen Z's, as we discuss life struggles and victories and all the issues we face, no matter what our age might be. My co-host today, Minister James Durham, you know that cowboy. And our special guest, we welcome back to continue our discussion, Reverend A. Colette Rice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, praise be to God. Well, we've been talking about DreamBusters, naysayers, and all of those who try to get in our way, stop us, block us. That's what they sing sometimes, you know.
Yeah, they do.
It's always somebody. Talking about me. So even allowing the enemy to get in our heads and stop ourselves from living a victorious life. In part one, we heard from Rev Rice how God moved in her life and moved her into ministry full time. And you know, we get to a place in ministry where we can become comfortable and think, okay, God, this is good. And like Moses, who was on the backside of the desert with his sheep, and at a place of comfort. And he looks and there's this bush burning. He says, let me go see what this bush is. And he goes and he walks there and God tells him the ground that you're standing on is holy ground. Take off your shoes. And then God speaks to him. He has this path that he wants him to take. Reverend Rice, here she is, comfortable in ministry, being about what God wants her to be about. And he begins to stir deep inside of her. And he says, there's still something I want to birth up out of you. And here it is.
Wow.
He births this book. Wit and Wisdom, Lessons on Life, Love, and Leadership. And we're going to talk about that today. Let me first ask, is the book available on Amazon, or how do we get the book?
Yes, it is. It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
It's available on Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And it is available on the publisher's site, iuniverse.com.
Okay. So let's go to iuniverse.com. Is that straight to you?
That's straight to me.
Yeah, let's go to iuniverse.com, and once you get there, just follow the prompts.
Right. Well, actually, it's even easier. It'll come straight to me for my site. If they go, it's Wit and Wisdom with Colette.com.
Okay. Wit and Wisdom with Colette.com. All right. So make sure you pick up this book if you have not. And I want you to share it with the Gen X's and the Gen Y's and the Gen Z's, because their expressions, they're going to look at it and go, what?
And that was actually the point of you writing the book, right? Can you share about that?
Yes. Well, my initial call, as you said, was to write a book. I felt compelled to do that. And initially, I wanted to write something on grief, healing grief. And I realized I came to a point as I was trying to prepare to do that I really wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to deliver. So I could talk about the pain, but the purpose of the book is to usher us to our healing and victory. And I was still dealing with the grief of my mom passing, and so I had to put that project on hold. And I knew I had to do something because I had contracted with the publisher, and they kept reaching in, and I started feeling kind of silly after a while. Like, how you coming along? Okay, it's coming. And so eventually I had to make a move. And I always thank Minister Durham for being a great source of inspiration. After one of our meetings, he was like, Reverend Rice, what was that you just said? And I'm like, he said, no, you said. And then he said, look, I got it in my note. I got a whole page of Rev Riceisms. And I, the light went off in my head, and I'm like, okay. In the meantime and in between time, you can already celebrate by honoring the legacy. And so it made me think about how often I am in teaching moments, preaching moments, in our sessions, coaching moments, where I'm always saying, my father used to always say, my mother used to always say, and I said that more often than I realized. And what better way to honor their legacy, honor their contributions to my maturation than to capture those words of wisdom.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that as you're growing up, your parents and your aunts and others around you, especially for me coming out of the South, they have these expressions, and you don't. First of all, you ponder them when they say it, because at the time that they're saying it, it really doesn't mean much except for you to think about it.
It really does.
So you walk away saying, "Wonder what they was trying to really say to me."
Right.
So is this how? I mean, how did you manage to gather all of these expressions?
Right. Well, I thought about, and I write about that in the introduction, was my Uncle Ben.
Okay.
And I recall when after he passed, and I had the privilege of preaching his eulogy, and he was one who did not, for years we discussed the fact that he felt that women weren't called to ministry, and what a wonderful, opportunity I had that he asked, that when he had the time and space before he died to say, hey, I want Colette to do my eulogy. So I was reflecting after Mom had gone at this point, Dad had gone, and now Uncle Ben is gone, and I'm rocking on the porch, sitting on that porch in Union, South Carolina, 114 East Lee Street, where we grew up. We rocked on that same porch and them same rocking chairs for about 40 years.
Right.
And so I'm sitting here now, everybody's gone, and I'm rocking in the chair, and I remember the moment that he said to me as a young lady was walking down the street, and I made some comments about my assumptions about her life. She had these kids in tow, and I was like, I had my little sidebar commentary. And he said to me at that time, Colette, a heap see, but few know. Okay, now you talking about some country wisdom, and you talking about being stumped. I was like, what did he just? But I believe he said something.
Right.
And when he said it, I didn't get it.
Right.
But as I rocked on that porch that day, I said, this is really what he's trying to tell me, is that so many of us, while we have eyesight, we are lacking insight.
Right.
And what I love about this book is it's just rich with history and the wisdom of our ancestors. Because like you said, I had these notes in my Evernote. I had this whole note, Rev Rices sayings, and I would go over these. I remember one day we were on the phone and you said, "Never ask a man to give you the shirt off his back." And he was like, "Wow." He explained that to me. He explained that one to me. So it's just so awesome just to have that wisdom written down, because I love these quotes. These quotes done a lot for me, but I know I won't remember all of these quotes. That's why I wrote them down, and it's good to have this so we can pass these down to generations.
Because we had the benefit of the oral tradition, and we listened. But as I was sharing the other day, I was at we did a conversation party on the book, and what God spoke to me and said is we don't have the same opportunities. Like when I was coming up, we all had dinner together. Like we had dinner. We had, family time. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist now, but certainly not as frequently. And so there were moments for impartation that are not necessarily readily available now. And so it is important that we don't lose it, that we don't lose the art of imparting, lessons, for life. And everything doesn't have to be gained through your mistakes.
Exactly.
Exactly. You're gonna make some.
One of the things I've learned to do is to try and learn from other people's
mistakes.
Right. And as you said, when the families do gather together today, this day and age, it's a little different. Somebody has on headphones.
Somebody's in their phone.
Yes.
Just listening to one person speak. We're all listening with apt attention.
Right. So the book has 3 sections: life, love, and leadership. So what I did was I went through the book and I sort of selected some ones that I'd like for you to talk about. Okay. And the first one is water seeks its own level.
Wow. So that was something I often heard coming up as well, and how important it is for us to be very selective about those who are in our space, those who dwell in our space, that we're careful, because people, I found coming up because of my personality type, that people would choose me, right? And oftentimes when people choose you, they're not always the right one, right? And so it's just important for us to be focused on.
I think that's very important, because as the younger generation, Gen X's, Gen Y's, and Gen Z's, and even the baby boomers, you really have to be careful about who you surround yourselves with. And if you find yourself always around people who are complainers, it might be time to check. Because you just might be a complainer. So, and if there's some place that you want to go, or some success you want to have, but the people that you continue to have around you are people who are just satisfied with the status quo and are always questioning you about, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to? So I think that is so key about water seeking its own level. If you find yourself at that low place over and over, check who's around you. Because that's you want to make sure you're with people who have that same mindset, who are, looking, towards, seeking better. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have a mindset sometimes to think that there's something wrong with a person because they want better.
They want to do better and be better.
They want to do better. We can look at them. And sometimes in our community, unfortunately, the person who comes out of prison might be celebrated. While the young man or young woman who goes off to college, we got these little marks that we put against them. They soft. They did. We got to change this mindset, and here it is: water seeking its own level.
Seeks its own level.
Yeah.
The
other one I wanted to talk about is, you're always the last person to smell yourself. You know what?
Well, that's true, both in the physical, right, literally and figuratively, right. So I just remember that, our parents would always tell us that if you don't know your tart. If you forgot your deodorant or something like that, somebody usually figures that out before you do. Right. You come into a room and you're like, ooh, okay. And it's the same thing with fragrances. A lot of times people I sat by somebody the other day, and their cologne just really took my breath away. And, people hug you and they have the extra, and not in a good way. So really, you just don't know. And usually by the time you find out, it's when it's too late. And it's the same thing with our behavior. Now, we used to hear that all the time. You smelling yourself. But usually by that time, you're already over the edge.
There's another one. Mr. Durham, you may have some.
Oh, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
One of my favorite sayings, and you say this all the time with the staff, is to keep the main thing.
The main thing.
I remember in that, I always think about that. And I remember you asked me to do a devotion at one of our staff meetings, and I talked about keeping the main thing. Share more about that saying.
Well, a lot of times, and it's so important in life that we don't get sidetracked by the rabbit trails, because people will lead you down rabbit trails. They'll distract you, and the next thing you know, we're focusing on something that really isn't centric. It really has no bearing. We really have to stop and ask ourselves, what is this part going to matter? Is this really significant? Is it going to matter? 5 days from now, what is going to be the significance? And even if it has some bearing, if it's not central, you know what I mean? That is very important that we don't get distracted. We get off point. Sometimes we never even get to our final destination because we're veering all the time.
I know growing up, I used to hear my parents say all the time, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. First of all, Minister Durham, do you know what a turnip is?
Yes, I do.
I'm surprised. A lot of people don't know what a turnip is. They know turnip greens, but they don't know turnip.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that's really funny because, first of all, I loved. My mother used to make turnips all the time, and somehow or another she would be able to make them taste good. But turnips is not really my favorite. You like turnips?
I do.
Okay,
I do
good
too.
for you. You too?
All
You
greens.
cook. I
All
remember.
greens.
Okay,
turnips, yeah.
you fix turnips too. Well, really, it's about understanding that a lot of times we want something from people that they are simply unable to give. And when we push that, you know what I mean? A lot of times it's unnecessary tension, it's unnecessary frustration. You have to, as in one of the other sayings, know when you know. You know what I mean? You have to know when you're not going to be able to get what it is that you need, and it's fruitful. It's really. It's an effort that's not worth bearing because it's not going to yield fruit. Right? It's not going to yield fruit.
Believe what you know.
Oh, Lord. Lord have mercy. We know some things. Like there are things we know, right? We know because the Surgeon General has told us that cigarette smoking is hazardous to your health. You know that.
You know that.
But if you don't believe, what you know, then you're not going to act on it, right?
I think we meet people all the time who what they believe is contrary to truth.
It's contrary to truth.
You know,
you're right. You're
it's
right.
contrary. We were talking about that today about
thinking.
person stating, making some statements and they're
changing the narrative in their mind. And just not living in reality.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you move to the next one because I'm ready.
My second favorite
Okay.
So keep the main thing. I love that. Get my second favorite one because I'm always asking myself, what's the redemptive value in this? So
my God.
seek to find the redemptive value. Talk about that.
Wow. That one came from my dad, and he would always help me to process as my coach, as my mentor, whenever I would seek to do something. Oftentimes it would be me trying to have conversation with him about things, particularly like church. And I'd say, when we were going through those difficult seasons, and I would say, okay, tell me about so-and-so. What happened with so-and-so? And he said, no, there's no need to know. And I'd say, why not? Why not? Tell me. He says, it has no redemptive value. Yeah. And whenever he was keeping me, you know what I mean, from the fray, and so it's very critical that when we have, even in those moments when we're seeking to get information or even do things or even hold on to things, we ask ourselves, what is the redemptive value? And there are times when we have experiences and so forth, you have to ask, okay, I need to know what is God. It's the same thing. If it's a redemptive value, it's the same as asking ourselves, what is God teaching me in this moment? And then making sure we take a hold of that so we can move on.
Because every first Sunday we say, not needlessly exposing the infirmities of others.
Wow.
And so there are conversations that are had that you don't necessarily, you may not share because you ask yourself, is there any redemptive value in it? And it's not. So you say, you know what? It's not even worth sharing.
Yes, and another way this blesses me is in tough conversations. When having tough conversations, I try and seek with the person I'm speaking to. What's the redemptive value in this? I know we're on different ends of the spectrum, but what is the redemptive value? And how can we come together to some level?
And when you hear no, no has a redemptive value. I want people to understand. Stop thinking of no as negative. No is a good place to start. No propels you, moves you. No, look,
motivates you.
What's the redemptive value in that no? Yes. Because God wants me to learn something out of that no.
It's okay to get a no, but it's also okay to say no.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Finding your best yes and finding an even better no.
Something that we don't do. Something that we don't do, and I don't know why, but we shy away from it. celebrating the gift of you. Celebrate the gift of you. We push down. We don't ever want to, because we're afraid somebody gonna think I'm bragging about myself. But celebrate. You said celebrate the gift of you. Where did that come from?
Because God, I believe that it honors God when we celebrate. Because we're here, we're ambassadors. We're here to be used by Him. We're not here for any self-gain. It's really all about Him placing gifts in us that we can benefit others. Like we're here for Him to be used by Him. And so the sooner we recognize the gifts that He's placed in us, knowing that it's for no benefit of our own, you know what I mean, but to bless others, and then we release that. We release any, because we know it's the gift that He gave, right? Instead of something that is about us.
There are these recordings in my mind on a regular basis. And another one is trust but verify.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Trust but verify.
Jesus. How many times have we gotten in trouble because we took somebody else's word for it? We did not, and I learned that, I'm going to be honest with you, I learned that from one of my supervisors. Now, of course, we know that it was President Reagan who made it who gave us that contribution. But really, when I was working in government, I had a supervisor, Violet Cromartie, and Violet was the type of person who, when we did conferences and things like that, she would give them the setup. She was so thorough, but she would give them all the setups, the layers, but she would still be up. She would get up 4:30 in the morning, and she would go down, and we would be like, well, the conference doesn't start till 8 o'clock. Can't we do that by 7:45? And she was like, oh no, you have to go down and you have to check. As I think I also have in there, inspect what you expect. You better get down there and verify. And there have been times when they had to flip the room because they didn't set it right. And that's a small example, but all the way around, if we're not at a place, because now, and I don't know if you all see it as much as I see it, but I'm really watching and coming to the harsh reality that good help is hard to find. People lie all the time. People aren't always doing what they say they're going to do, and so you can really get caught up in so we have to find ways with finesse, okay, may I see that? Or can you send me an email confirming that? Or what? However you have to do it, right? But you better verify.
And the next one is that I think is extremely helpful for the listening audience is play the hand that was dealt you. We can always look over, peer out the window, somebody else's life. But, I think this is so good that God would say this to us. However I've made you, whatever situation I've put you in, that is where I want you to start. Serve some quarters. That's where I want you to start. An alcoholic mother. That's where I want you to start. That's exactly where I want you to start. So talk about that. Play the hand.
You gotta play the hand that was dealt you. You can sit still and ponder and wish I coulda, woulda. I wish it could be this way. I wish it could be that way. I wish I was this. I wish I could sing. I wish I could do whatever it is. Instead of taking what, as God asked Moses, like, what's in your hand? Right? What do you have in your hand? And when you pause and you look, you're like, I've got this in my hand. My father used to say that jokingly. When they would discuss marriage, and he'd say, well, I look at Sarah Rice as the hand that was dealt me. That was a running joke, but they were very much in love, But really embracing, what you have, and then asking God to show you what to do with it, whatever it is.
Right. Every crow thinks it's the blackest.
That's one of my favorites.
Every crow.
I'm sorry. That's one of my favorites. That was something my mother used to tell me. And she also proved it out because she was the probably the president, and I'd say maybe Tania is the vice of and Terrence. I got 3 members in my fan club, and they were it. So one of the things that, you know, when we would brag, or you would hear people brag on, you know, their people who they loved, or people who they care about, you allow them that space to do that. Or we say, you know, I see it all the time, especially in the church. You know, you have, especially when we do things like give out scholarships and different things. Well, my child, you know, and I'm like, hey, we got 100, you know, we got 200, 500, we got tons of kids who are doing the same thing. But I understand why you would think, you know, yours.
Amen.
Your success.
So in Ecclesiastes 1:9, Ecclesiastes 1:9, it says, that which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Get the book. Our universe. Our universe. Join us each week to be inspired, to be informed, to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Hey, can't wait to see you next week. Wow, loved it.
Thank you.
Loved it.